A new young jock, a couple things you want to find out about yourself. Number one, how do I want to sound? What about my style? And number two, what do I want to call myself? So one of the guys that I really copied his style, even his board work, his engineering and all, was Ike Goods, and his handle was Prince Ike behind the mic. And we had Slick, Slack, Merle, the Pearl, and all of them, you know. But I was sitting there, he was doing his show, and I was sitting there quietly, of course. And I said, by the way, Ike, I don't know what to call myself. And he played one or two other records, and he said, let me think about it. And so he played another one and got another one started. He said, I know what your name is. I said, what's that? Sam the Sham. And so, 2 or 3 weeks went by, and they all knew Sam the Sham in the clubs and everywhere. And then one day, the boss walked in. He said, I don't like that name, Sam the Sham. I said, what do you mean, boss? I mean, that's what they know me. Do you know what a blankety blank sham is? I said, no, I hadn't really thought of it. He said, go to the dictionary and look it up. And I tell you what, it was terrible. A sham, a shyster and everything else, But to me, it was just a character on the air. I never tried to live up to the image of that character, Hey, great day in the morning, everybody. We're right back on the scene with the Gospel Record Machine. My name is Brother Sam Tate. You're listening to Gospel Gems, where playing the gospel is what I do, and I like my job. By the way, friends, if you happen to be driving around out there today, thank you so very much for letting us ride along with you. After all, it takes people like you to make people like me, and I just want to thank you. But if you're as long as I can remember Sam Tate, 3.5 or 4 years old, I've been fascinated with microphones. I had it so bad, I would go around on the farm broadcasting in sticks and cobs and all. And if somebody walked up on me, I'd start to singing because that didn't sound as crazy as talking to yourself. I'm from Morganton, North Carolina, but I was actually born in New York. My dad was a sailor, a merchant mariner. Working on a civilian ship during World War II. And at the age of 3, he decided to move the family to the farm in Morganton, North Carolina. And that's really where I grew up until I was 18 and went off to college at A&T State University in Greensboro. And I worked my way through school at the local soul station there in town. And of course, the disc jockeys, they were characters. But some of the artists that I've had a chance to meet, I used to drive the legendary Otis Redding around, sitting on the dock of the bay. James Brown knew I liked to fly. He'd let me go out and get on his Lear jet. Michael Jackson, Jerry Butler, Solomon Burke, all of them. Joe Simon, we're still friends today. He's one of the few that's still alive. But what would happen, anytime those artists would come to town, especially in the larger markets, first place they wanted to come to was the radio station for the interviews. And then we would MC the shows at the Coliseum, at the Greensboro Coliseum, for example. And what an opportunity for a little 19, 20-year-old college kid, backstage rubbing shoulders with the stars and all. 3 days after I became a student there at A&T State University, ironically, the Soul Station was only a mile away from campus. So in between classes and on weekends and all, I just hung around the radio station. So some of the older guys sort of took me in under their wing, and they let me sit down behind the console and everything. So finally, I learned what to do pretty good, and I started taking all of the shifts that nobody else wanted. Like, who wants to sign on Christmas morning? I will. Easter Sunday, I will. And come vacation time, I fill in for all of the other announcers. I was the morning man, afternoon man, news man, gospel man. But at the end of the summer, the boss realized there's only one person around here who can do anybody's job. That little guy who hangs around the radio station all the time. And not too long after that, somebody got fired. And he said, get Sam ready. And that's how I got into the industry. But my idol was John R. from WLAC in Nashville, Tennessee. And, most of the audience thought those guys on that radio station, which was a 50,000 water at night, went into Mexico, all throughout the South and all. They thought that those guys were black, but they were actually Caucasian, and John R. was my idol. And I have a commercial here, but John R. is probably over 60 years old. I'd like to play right quick, if that's okay.
I want to tell you right now, I want to talk to your head about the Hoyt Sullivan thing. Hoyt Sullivan's famous hair and scalp conditioner. Look here, friend, don't expect nothing to grow hair but your scalp. Now, that's the only thing in the world gonna grow hair for you on your head is your scalp. And you got to take good care of it. You got to keep it in good, healthy hair-growing condition. That's where Hoyt Sullivan's famous hair and scalp conditioner comes in the door, right there. Hoyt Sullivan's famous hair and scalp conditioner. If they don't have it in your hometown, if they're out of it or something, you write to me, will you? Send $1 and your name and address. To me, John R., WLAC, Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm going to see that you get a generous supply of Hoyt Sullivan's by mail, postpaid.
Hey, John R., what you gonna do? Come on, John R., man, it plays a role to do.
I remember when I was a little boy, I could not understand how that big old man like John R. crammed himself into that little radio. And I must have been about 4 years old. And when my mom got to me, she got to me just in time because I was tearing into the back of that radio. I could have gotten electrocuted or whatever.
He's so
Hey everybody, it's going to be another golden hit played with a silver needle, flashing back to 1956 to late and great Brother Sam Cooke from his old songbook along with the Soul Stirrers, and that's one called Wonderful. In the meantime, in case anybody asks you, say, listen, don't you know that that's Brother Sam Tate on the radio, and we're going to be on your mind for the rest of the hour, so get on that telephone and call and tell a friend. One of the main things about doing a show, and there's a difference between a show and a shift, is the personality. That personality, that morning personality, whatever, becomes a part of the family, And if you don't hear them, you miss them. One of the hazards of the industry is the fact even times when you're not feeling good or you're upset. There's been a few times I was upset with the program director or even with my wife. But when I hit that mic switch, I've got to be having a good time.
I'm Lee Cameron, General Manager and Radio Personality at Great Gospel 1250 AM WDBA and streaming at WDBAradio.com in Danville, Virginia. One of my mentors, Brother Sam Tate, is on the air with Gospel Gems.
I'm still finding out the number of white audiences that grew up during their teenage years listening to that rhythm and blues, the Motown sound and all. That music has crossover appeal to this day, And soul has no color. It's about feeling. Did you hear John R. a while ago? Right upstairs, it's where we met.
Right.
I came in and
Okay.
I came in and I just naturally asked somebody, where are you from? He said, well, I grew up in Greensboro.
When he told me who he was, man, it all came back. I mean, it wasn't like I had any fog. It was perfectly clear,
Yeah, man.
that I remember in those days. I was fortunate to grow up in Greensboro, and I was in high school in the 60s.
Mm.
And so, radio was the big thing for all of us. And that was our entertainment pretty much.
Yeah.
And so when we were ever in the car or whatever, we'd be listening to the radio, and all of a sudden Sham moved to town, and,
oh Lord,
and we all started listening. I mean, it was, I'd probably not listen to that particular station, and everybody was kind of like a magnet attracting all us white boys, and I mean we couldn't get enough of it because he was playing, the music of the day and a lot of Motown and so, but we'll have to tell you, Sam had a certain way about him. He did a lot of jiving and talking, and it was fun to listen to him. And they were disc jockeys and they were radio station stuff, but he put something into it, that made it kind of come alive to us, and you were drawn to it. everything he did was nice and clean and respectful and whatever, even though it was fun to listen. And I'd turn the radio on when I was in the car before I got my own driver's license. My mom would be, I'd tune into the big wheel, WEAL, and Sam would be on there. And my mother never ever once said, let's change radio stations.
Oh.
In fact, they even enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, listen to him and all his
Thank
jive.
you.
So no matter what your heritage was or whatever, Sam was the man.
Oh,
And, you know, and
I send him a check every month. But if you're driving around out there today, I know the music sounds good, but don't you dare pat that right foot, because I don't want you to take a chance and wind up in an ambulance. Get on that telephone and let everybody know that Gospel Gems is on the radio. I started in '64. Can you imagine how long that's been? Until I went in the Army in 1968. And then after about 3 years in the Army, I came back and worked a little while at WEAL again. And then I went to work with the Xerox Corporation as a salesman, Greensboro, and then my main territory was Durham. In '74, I moved back home to Morganton, my hometown, and was an administrator with the community college, for 16 and a half years, became Dean of Continuing Education and all, and at Hickory and all. And I moved back and went to work part-time there at WMNC, the local station there. And by being there, I just heard about a frequency opening up in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. I actually got the construction permit in 1982, and we signed on June of 1983. And I told the guy, Ted Bell, on the air, I said, look here, son, don't throw that switch. The morning that we signed on, I said, don't throw that switch till I get out here in the car. I want to hear the very first words of a God-given dream come true, radio station. So I'll never forget that morning. I found the frequency. And when he signed up, good morning at this time, WOIX begins its very first day of broadcasting. Let me tell you, a little tear came right down because, nobody knows what all we went through. Not a lot of money and, just so many things. But the competition who tried to, compete for the frequency too. I always wanted to syndicate Sam the Sham. My dream was to go to New York and all this other. But I was in the production room of our station one day, and it just, the good Lord spoke to me or something, was impressed in my spirit that, yes, he wants me to syndicate Oldie Goldie Black Gospel. I'm glad I listened, took that advice, because I found a niche now that nobody is really doing across the country. For example, so many artists, Aretha Franklin, Sam Cooke, Joe Simon, so many artists started out in the church. They went into the secular world, and some of them, if they lived long enough, Sam Cooke didn't, have come back to the church. So I've got a little niche, and one thing about Oldie Goldie Black Gospel, Aretha Franklin is Aretha Franklin. She's just singing different lyrics. So it's got that same rhythm and blues appeal.
Hello, this is Luther Barnes of the Sunset Jubilaires and the Red Blood Gospel Choir, reminding you that you're listening to Gospel Gems with our good friend Sam Tate.
So, I thought Sam the Sham had a little popularity back during the day. It's nothing compared to the 65 or 75 stations that we're on now. Because, first of all, that many radio stations playing the show, plus the World Wide Web. I was in Belize some years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and 2 o'clock Central American time, I'm listening to the web and listening to Brother Sam Tate and Gospel Gems. My mind can't hardly wrap around that, you know what I mean? The fact that it's literally from this little studio, the show is going around the world.